Yes, welcome to another episode of The American Dream, a show where we go against the grain of the negative stuff you see in the media, and my goal is to educate, empower, and engage your American dream. Great show lined up for you today, great guests. Let's start it right now. Every single day you are consumed with information. With the 24/7 negative news cycle and the pop culture that's polluting the airwaves, all selling out for the ratings game. Well, guess what? There's a more positive way to look at life. You live in the greatest city in the greatest country on the planet. Every day with our elite network of professionals, our goal is to educate, empower, and engage. And now it's time to fight for your American dream. See this thing right here? The ultimate disruptor of business. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show. American Dream, international business. We got some great stories lined up for you. I want to put things in perspective before we get started. Uber, the #1 taxi cab company that doesn't own a car. Airbnb, the #1 hotel chain that doesn't have a hotel. Amazon, the #1 retailer that doesn't have shops. What am I trying to share with you? The world of business has changed. People are online, but with disruption creates opportunity. So we're going to dive into some of those opportunities today here on The American Dream. Check out these great guest interviews on the show. All right, bringing a new topic to the American Dream in the real estate game. How about international real estate? Fascinating topic. Award-winning realtor, been in the business for a couple decades plus.
Yes.
George Lorimer, leader in the space, nationally known. Good to have you on the show.
Thanks. Great to be here, Craig.
So I want to talk about this international marketplace that we find ourselves in. Before I move into that, give us an idea of just how the market feels right now. We're going into almost the middle of the year now, and we're getting into February, into March, so first quarter's about to get behind us.
Yeah, so big thing is shortage of inventory. We're seeing appreciating prices up about 6.5% year over year. So we're seeing that trend continue.
Still going, still low inventory, still low rates.
That's right.
All right, next topic, international buyers. So we have a lot of people that are now coming from overseas to buy property. It's big on the West Coast, but this is happening all over the country.
Right.
Give me kind of a synopsis of what you see on the international buyer. I mean, I just mentioned that you've been in this business for over 20 years. How has it evolved since you got in the game?
Yeah. So what we see nowadays is, it's a large percentage of the Asian buyer. Here in California, about 1 in 12 homes is sold to a foreign buyer who either lives here or lives out of the country.
1 in 12?
1 in 12.
Wow.
And of that, over 70% are Asian.
Okay.
So that's a big percentage. About another 14% is Latin America, Caribbean, that kind of thing.
And you think that's maybe just because how the economy is going there and they're trying to move their cash? Because these are cash buyers.
Yeah, so the profile of them is typically second home, cash buyers, and buying nicer places, looking long-term in terms of school, a property for their kid to go to college, that kind of thing. All the natural things we see, the difference is they want things really turnkey, maybe less price sensitive.
Sure.
And, a lot of them, they won't change a light bulb. So you get a premium in price, but it takes some more making the place look really nice so that they see the value within it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you market to the international buyer?
Right. So that's a great question, Craig. The important thing is a lot of them, speak their language first. So we've done a lot of properties in, some of the areas where there's a high concentration of Asian and Chinese, where we market in that language to them. And so those websites that are syndicated. Okay,
so what about things like, syndicated websites? Give me an example of what you mean.
Well, like actually Chinese speaking or language websites. Where, where they're able to, to get it over to the agents there that push that towards their clients.
Now what about things like Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com?
I think less of them come from that. That's probably the baseline of getting exposure for a property, but I don't think it necessarily reaches them when they're in their own country coming here.
What about social media?
I think it, again, has to be specific to what they're looking at. So probably not in my social media would be something that would interest them, but we reach out to the relevant social media to them.
So give me an example of, just a story of somebody who is an international buyer that came in and bought a property cash. How'd that process go? How did you communicate? I mean, now I'm thinking of you have a language barrier in many
Yes,
cases. So how do you work through all this?
Yeah. So
and then I also want to make sure it makes sense to the people that are watching. Does this create opportunities for us here and for home sellers here, and how do we tap into that? But
yes.
The language barrier.
So the language barrier, you know, a lot of is email, and a lot of the explanation of it has to be very simple to them, because people are dubious if they haven't purchased a property here, just like you and I would be if we went to Mexico to buy a property and we've heard, hey, I don't think we can have ownership on the coast. We'd want a lot of explanation, reassurances. When we put our deposit, we want to know that we have the inspection and contingency period. So I think, Craig, really simplifying it down and making it very simple to them. And then here's another thing is getting people who act as translators who have exposure within the business. So say if it's a Chinese buyer, having that language so that we have somebody that communicate with them so that they know specifically both culturally and language.
Let me ask you this before I let you go here. So we've been talking about sellers, the opportunity for them. What about buying in other areas? You just mentioned Mexico.
Yeah.
The American that wants to maybe buy that second home or that investment property. Are there any areas across the world that you like?
Yeah. So here's some of the good ones. So close to us is Puerto Vallarta. It's still a good...
Beautiful area.
Yeah. It's still a good area to buy in. And then Riviera Maya, which is further down south within Mexico. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of the other different areas. Belize. Belize has been, you know, they have both in the jungle and on the coast. Coast is more expensive, but beautiful within the Caribbean. And then one that's been strong for many years is Panama.
Wow.
So with Panama, what happens is you have, you know, Americans have gone there for years. So have Canadians. And what we have happening now is they have the Chinese going there for business purposes and investment purposes. A lot of high rises like South Beach, Miami. And they're expecting the same kind of bump from those Chinese entering that market as the Chinese back in Vancouver, Canada did in the 1990s.
And how does an American find these properties?
You know, I think websites are always good. They can reach out to us and we'll give them some resources. And everything has its own unique things. You know, like even if you're looking more towards Europe, if you like Europe better, you know, a really good one is in Portugal. That's undervalued. And the dollar's strong. And so north of Lisbon and the Rojo region up there, that's kind of a nice one too. And dollar-wise, that's a good price for Europe.
Interesting. Well, it makes the real estate game fascinating.
Yeah.
George Lorimer, award-winning realtor. I hope you connect with this guy online, georgelorimer.com. Always good to have you on the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
All right. More of the American Dream coming up next.
All right, we've got Nathan Keating in studio. He is the co-founder of Buildfire, and we are going to be talking about media content in today's market. Nathan, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about media in today's market. I mean, it's something that everybody and every business really needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's really regarded as one of, or the channel of the future, really. And I like to think about it not as a channel of the future, but really as a channel of today.
Right, not just the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how would you define media from a business or marketing perspective?
So it's interesting. As I was thinking about this, it's like, there are a variety of different types of media out there, right? You have graphical, you have audio, you have visual. Specifically, I want to focus on the video, the visual components, because if you take a look at even the definition of medium, I love this definition. It says, an intervening substance through which impressions are conveyed to the senses or a force acts on an object. And so I really want to talk about how video really can be utilized as a force to act on our audiences.
You mentioned conveyed to the senses.
Yeah, exactly.
So something that gets a visceral response from the people that see it.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so why is it, or is it important that business utilize video and media content? Always? Is it across the board?
Yeah, I would say for any type of business. And there are a lot of businesses out there that think, well, that might be for them or them, you know, but it's not really for me. But I would really challenge them on that because, as I said before, you know, it is a channel of the future. It's a channel of today. And I think, you know, if we really drill down to the core of what video does, is that it demands an emotional response from our audience. You know, it really draws us in. It kind of like gives us a hug around the shoulders, a nice squeeze, and then it asks us to do something, or to
Right.
purchase something. So it's important.
So where do we start? I mean, if we're starting out, we're starting a business, how do we know what kind of content to put out into the world?
Yeah, no, that's an important question and something that's important to think through. You know, not all video or all types of video, and there's not one type of video that fits all use cases. I think we see this in Hollywood even, right? You have different genres. You've got sitcoms, you've got documentaries, you've got, unfortunately, a lot of reality TV out there, right? And so it's
Which is scripted.
Which, yeah,
let's
right.
Just say.
Yeah, let's just say that.
Yeah.
Let's get that out there for everyone to know. And so it's important, you know, when you look at these genres, it's not really about the genre. It's about the audience behind the genre. Who is watching it, right? And so the same thing, you know, the same question we should be asking ourselves is, who is our audience, and what am I trying to say to them? You know, from a strategic level, there are really two different types of strategies. The first one is a branding strategy, and that's where, you know, the strategy behind this is you're not trying to get them to perform a specific call to action, right? And an example of that would be Always. They came out with this campaign that was called #LikeAGirl, right? And in that video, what they did was they asked a bunch of young ladies and women, what does it mean to throw like a girl? What does it mean to fight like a girl, or to run like a girl, right? And all of them kind of did this floofy little, this little dance, right? And then they asked these younger girls, what does it mean to do the same thing like a girl? And they gave their all. They were just like running as fast as they could and hitting as hard as they could, right? And so that is a prime example of this company that's all about feminine products. But in this campaign, they never mentioned their products at all. All they did was speak to the value of women.
So
right?
they're
The
trying to
empowerment of
get an
women.
emotional connection to their brand?
Exactly. It's all about the emotional connection. And I would even say if sometimes if you add a call to action in that, it can actually dilute your message. It can dilute your emotional response, because now people are thinking, well, you're just trying to sell something to me.
Okay.
Right? And so that's the first strategy, is about branding. The second strategy is about conversion. The main purpose of this is really to drive a call to action, trying to get your audience to do something. And the two are not mutually exclusive, right?
I was going to say, do we need to keep those separate?
No, we definitely do not need to keep those separate. And I think a prime example of you know, how these can work together is a campaign by greeting cards called The Hardest Job Ever. And so it was a campaign around Mother's Day where what they did was they brought a bunch of interviewees in, and they asked them all these just ridiculous questions, or seemingly ridiculous questions. It was like, you know, this job, director of operations, is 135 hours a week. You've got to be on your feet for 12 hours a day.
I remember this,
You
and
know?
I so relate to this.
Yeah, right? It's like you can only eat or go to the bathroom after all of your associates have, you know? And so everyone's thinking, they start asking questions like, is this even legal? Can we even do this as a job?
Yeah.
And then they reveal, of course, at the end that, you know, it's really a job about being a mom. Right? And everyone's like, oh, wow. And so at the end of that commercial, they had, you know, the value proposition was, your mom's important. She deserves to be, you know, for you to express your love for her. Why not do it with a card?
Right.
You know, and so there's a great mix of, you know, this brand,
The emotional and then a call to action.
Exactly.
Got
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
So when people come to you, to your company, Buildfire, you know, what if they don't have a clear message or a clear voice? Do you help them sort of work through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's important for them to be considering these things. I mean, I think, you know, as it relates to app technology, apps are the best way to really distribute this media, right?
Yeah.
They're on their phones all the time, and so if you want to reach them where they are with the best, you know, method for creating an emotional response, and emotional connectedness, it would be through their devices.
Well, you guys are incredible at Buildfire. We just love when you come on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And we'll be right back with more of The American Dream.
Join our fight against the negative media. Engage in the conversation online.
All right, this guy is usually in studio dropping real estate knowledge on us, but we sent him out into the field. Mike Cameron, award-winning realtor. We go out to America's finest city at the Broadway Pier. Let's go check it out.
As residents of San Diego, so much of our lifestyle revolves around our beautiful beaches and our undeniable coastlines. Our next two guests are here to tell us how an incredible organization is helping to fight and preserve those coastlines and the animals within them. Mike, you're a top real estate professional. Tell us a little bit about what's going on behind us.
Well, you can just see, looking at the downtown skyline, that there are cranes everywhere. Development is definitely back in downtown San Diego. It's great to see. As you know, we've had such a supply problem here in San Diego. Yes. Should be alleviated towards the end of this year. And it's great to see development, the new development on the Embarcadero, the $1.2 billion bayfront expansion. Wow. That has been approved already and started. And it's great to see all those new shops and things coming aboard.
Yeah, that's great. We got to walk a little bit around the pier. I mean, the biggest, showcase is San Diego Oceans and the coastline. Yeah. And I give credit to you and your family. You go about real estate very different. You're very involved in charities and the community. So I just want you to highlight a little bit about what you do.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, we have a passion. We have two organizations. One is Compassion for Paws, which helps rescue and rehabilitate dogs here in San Diego, and then another one is called CEDO. CEDO is an organization that is dedicated to the awareness and conservation of ocean and its creatures, its mammals that habitate it, the whales and dolphins specifically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our incredibly special guest that you brought us.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have David Hance here today. He's the COO of Sea Shepherd, which is an amazing organization that are actually on the front lines every day trying to protect whales and dolphins and other fish in the ocean too. So it's really,
thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's my honor.
So for those who don't know about Sea Shepherd yet, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, so Sea Shepherd, we've been around for 41 years. We were started in 1977 by a man named Paul Watson. Paul was one of the original 5 founding members of Greenpeace in the early 70s. And Paul was a very passionate person about saving animals and saving the ocean. And he realized that governments and other people weren't taking it serious enough and that nothing was going to be done with regulations. So he said, hey, the only way to really truly save these animals is to go out and save these animals. So he founded Sea Shepherd in '77, and as I said, we've been around for 41 years. In those 41 years, we have expanded from Paul and his small group of dedicated volunteers in '77 to 41 years later. We're in over 52 countries. We have entities all over the world. We have 12 vessels that are in various parts of the world protecting animals in the ocean. We have government partnerships now. We have a partnership here just across the border with Mexico that's just an amazing partnership, and they're so supportive of everything we're doing to protect an animal called the vaquita. So overall, we've grown tremendously in 41 years.
And one of the great campaigns that I think that they've just really taken a leadership role is the anti-captivity campaign, which is to really help people become aware of the marine parks and maybe some of the alternatives to going to a marine park.
Absolutely. We got to talk with Mr. Clevenger, and he's with Hornblower and the San Diego History Museum, and just, I mean, you know it best, the alternatives to going on these cruise ships and seeing the beautiful animals within their natural environment versus the marine parks,
100%. Mike mentioned captivity and how horrible this is, and I think you and I talked a little bit before we started. People have seen the film Blackfish, they've seen the film The Cove. There's a large faction of people that really still don't understand how bad captivity is for these dolphins and whales, and they don't really understand how horrific a life it is for these animals to live in captivity and to live in a place like any of these marine parks, when they can go out here on the ocean, as you mentioned, Hornblowers, you mentioned the San Diego Natural History Museum, they can take them out and see them in their natural environment every single day, doing the same tricks, living a very happy and free life that they don't get in these marine parks.
And it's so amazing. Those whale watching tours are just incredible to watch.
If you haven't been on one, I highly recommend it, and I don't think that you would ever spend your money on a marine park after that once you've been out there.
And sadly, a lot of people don't even realize that there's a direct connection with these marine parks and where they're getting the animals to do the tricks, to do the, and it's fueling what's going on in a world that we hardly ever see, but it's happening.
Absolutely, and even in addition to the captivity that happens in places like Taiji, Japan, and these other coves where they capture the dolphins, there's another faction of people that don't really get a lot of attention, which is the travel and tourism industry that are promoting swim with dolphin, the buyers, the sellers, the trainers. There's a whole faction of people that play a role in this, that also are equally to blame. And if we could put as much focus on all of them as we do on these places like Taiji, I think it would make a big difference.
So how can people just watching this piece get involved?
Yeah, there's a variety of ways people can get involved with Sea Shepherd. You can come out and volunteer on our ships. As I mentioned, we have 12 vessels around the world protecting various animals. If you have the time or the ability to come out on a ship, we're always looking for dedicated volunteers. There are local chapters we have 22 chapters in the U.S. and Canada. People can get involved locally and put out the word. You can go onto our website and buy our merchandise and wear some really cool
Can we send you money?
Sea Shepherd. You absolutely can send us money. I should be mentioning that first.
Absolutely.
But yes, you can donate on our website, and that is what keeps fueling our ships is people's money. $5
I mean,
here,
that's
$10
proof in
there.
itself. So many people in this mentality, in this society, say, it's just me, I can't do anything alone. Your founder was proof that you can get a few people together, and you can buy a t-shirt, help out. Mike's incredible. Every transaction that they go through, they donate $200. So it's just from a real estate agent to whether you're an engineer on a boat, it can happen.
I think that is the key, is that there's no one that's too small to do something. And Paul Watson, our founder, is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Mike's a perfect example. If you want to do something, you can get up off your couch and find a way to make a difference, and I promise you it will help. And I promise you there will be people that will join you.
And you said something, a powerful statement that Paul, your founder, lived off of. Tell me a little bit about what he said and what stuck with you as well when you joined the team.
Yeah, for sure. He's very famous for saying, if the oceans die, we die. And I just want people to really think about what that means, or really stop and dissect that. If the oceans die, we die. If we don't have a healthy ocean, we as a human species cannot survive. We need the oxygen, we need the role the ocean plays in photosynthesis. So if we kill the ocean, whether it's from overfishing or plastics or pollution, then that's the beginning of the end for all of mankind. So if the oceans die, we die. That is, truer words have never been spoken.
Such a powerful message. Well, Mike, thank you so much for introducing us to Dave.
You bet.
Dave, thank you so much for everything you're doing, and I hope everyone can get involved at this point.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We appreciate it. We appreciate everything Mike's doing, and anybody that wants to get involved, come on out. We'll take you.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Join our fight against the negative media. Engage in the conversation online.
I have Kathy and Rich Fettke in studio. They are co-CEOs of the realwealthnetwork.com. Thank you both so much for being here. Thanks for inviting us.
Great to be here.
So tell me a little bit about why you started the Real Wealth Network.
Well, we had a bit of a wake-up call. Rich was really at the top of his game. He was traveling all over the country with his new book, Extreme Success, back in 2002.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, and we noticed a little freckle when we were on vacation, and he went and checked. He's a redhead. Turns out it was melanoma. And then after a meeting with the doctor thought it had spread and told Rich he had 6 months to live.
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah, with a 3-year-old daughter, and
oh my
it was
gosh,
a tough blow.
So, and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. I had been in broadcasting, but I wanted to raise these children. And I didn't actually believe the doctor, but I knew that Rich needed time to recover. And so I was desperate to find a way to create passive income so that I could stay a mom. I wanted to be home with the kids and not leave all day. So I had a radio show at the time. I still do. It's the Real Wealth Show. And it's a podcast now. And I just started interviewing people who created passive income. I just was like, I wanted to know everything. And we learned that real estate was a way to do that. And so all of a sudden, overnight, we built an audience who also wanted that.
Right.
So that created Real Wealth Network. That
was it,
how it started.
And you obviously healed, and you're here.
Yeah, it was a misdiagnosis. It was the false reading, but yeah, it was like 4 months of not knowing what was, a very scary time.
Gosh.
Yeah,
but it changed your life forever.
It changed both of our lives, and a lot of lives after that. We have over 32,000 members now in our company, and so we've helped 32,000 people invest in real estate. So it's been phenomenal.
But
lots of lives.
It's really not just about real estate. It's about passive income to live your life the way you want. One of the things that he said when he got the diagnosis and truly thought he had 6 months to live, the first thing he said is, I'm so glad I lived. Because in his book, Extreme Success, he talked about how every Friday he would take that off to go rock climbing or surfing or jumping off things.
Balance.
And spending, creating life balance. And so even if the doctor was right, he felt fulfilled. And that's part of our message at Real Wealth Network is, what would you do if you had time?
Right.
You know, we can help you create the money and the passive income, but what are you going to do with your time? Have you even thought of that? And most of the people in our audience haven't.
No. They're so driven to access the money.
Yeah.
And then they sit back one day and they go, what do I love?
Yeah.
What do I love? And so we start there. What do you love? We've helped people. It's easier to help people who maybe are just starting out. Like we had one artist who wants to just create art.
Yeah.
And all he needed to cover his bills was $30,000 a year. And then he could have he had the wealth of freedom. And that's what we so often forget. I sometimes work with directors and producers and actors in Silicon Valley, executives who are trying to create passive income, and they need to replace a $500,000 a year salary. Now that's going to take a little more effort.
Right.
But even then, they don't really know what to do with their time because they've never had it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't just work with the uber wealthy.
No, I mean, but we see that. You know, we live in Malibu, and we see it a lot. And you know, some people are so poor, all they have is money. You know, and it's sad. It's like finding that balance of really, you know, getting fulfillment out of life and what really matters. And money helps fund that, you know, but it's about freedom and balance.
What do you see people struggling with the most and coming to you with the most as far as questions?
Well, I would say it is that, how do I create passive income? They saw my story, they saw us create it, and also create a really successful business that has a lot of systems in place so that also creates freedom. But I would say the biggest questions are, how can we have that? You know, how do we get started in real estate? And in many cases, people in high-priced markets like California have just by accident bought something and it's made a bunch of money.
Right.
And they have the chance right now, right now, maybe they made $500,000 or $1 million in the last 5 years, but they're not cash flowing on that property. So they come to us and we can show them how one change, selling that property and exchanging it tax deferred, you don't even have to pay the taxes on that when you sell it, and buy in other places where there is cash flow, like Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, just other markets. They can quintuple their cash flow, and they find out they can actually retire now. And I don't like using the word retire. That sounds like you just step out of life.
Right.
I mean, you really get to step into your life. Yeah, job optional.
Job optional, and go and be able to do the things that you love to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are running out of time, but very, very quickly, how is it working together, husband and wife?
We've worked it out. We've worked it out really well.
Also
we found out who does what and whose focus is over where. So it's great. She's got her role, I have mine, and you know it's fantastic. It's great to be able to have it be our passion.
A lot of communication. You can't just give up. You got to keep working on it. Keep working on how to communicate better.
In all aspects of our life, right?
In all aspects.
Yes.
All right. Thank you both so much. Such great advice.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more of The American Dream.
That's all for today's show. However, I want to remind you, you can find us online as well. We're posting all the time. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Visit us at AmericanDreamNetwork.tv. Find us there. We'd love to hear from you. Engage in the conversation. That's all for today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers to your American Dream.